You know, I think I'm gonna have a drink for this one. Better than food, man. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. This is no time for making jokes. We're reviewing a J.M Coetzee novel today. Anyways, great to see you as always. Hope you're all doing well. It's a beautiful day here in Detroit, Michigan, and it seems inappropriate to be talking about a book this dark on a day this nice. But the show must go on. And it's a damn good book. So today is J.M Coetzee's Disgrace. It's a disgrace that it took me this long to read Coetzee. This is my first one. But upon finishing this one, good Lord God, how does he do it is the first question I ask. It's a strikingly perfect balance of brutal, gut-wrenching metaphysical terror in the form of a page-turner. How do you make a book this dark, this readable? Not necessarily palatable, as it's effective, right, in communicating the darkness. Depressing sometimes, though always honest and beautiful. Not overwrought or dishonest or self-pitying, not at all. But again, a page-turner. I mean, it grips you and you're going. I mean, it's something about his word choice and economy, his knowledge of the language, his balance of the sentences. It's, what is it? What do we got here as far as page count? We got 215. It's not a long novel. It's excellent. So, I mean, really, I'm going to shorter novels. I know I need to read the big ones and all the good stuff, like Brothers K and yeah, I'll get to Ulysses and all that stuff. And but I mean, really, you know, if you the fewer pages you can use to get an idea across, a really heavy idea, or just some great questions, I mean, the more effective, the more impressive it is to me personally. Especially now because everything's vying for our time. You know, I think a friend and I were talking about this a while ago. We were just talking about shorter novels and how much more, you know, how things are going that way. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. You know, of course, if there's nothing wrong with longer books, it's just a question of time and efficiency, really, you know, especially with the culture not being very reading oriented these days. Well, maybe, I don't know, there's I guess that's up for debate, but it's different. This is a story about an English professor in Cape Town who teaches bored students about the Romantic poets and literature. He's an expert in Byron. Spoilers coming. He sleeps with one of his students, a young girl. I think she's 20 or something like that. The book is told through his point of view, and he says he doesn't rape her, but the coercion and lack of enthusiasm on her part seems enough to suggest a comparison with what's to come, which I will tell you. So again, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. It's very difficult to talk about this one without giving away what happens in the plot, you know, because it's fundamental to discussing it, you know, sort of operating on a couple of major scenes. So the relationship is discovered. He refuses to apologize for his nature to the board or the committee or whoever, and is subsequently kicked out, ostracized from the academic world. There's actually a great moment of him giving a lecture on Lucifer. Yeah, after he's done what he's done. The fall from grace, right? See Paradise Lost. So that part of his life is over. I mean, he's 52, you know, it's a very, you could say, bold move on his part to not even, I mean, all these people try and get him to apologize, to take back what he's done, but he's like, no, like, I did it, I take full responsibility, I'm totally accountable, now punish me, like, sentence me, do what you're gonna do, let's get on with our lives. And so they do, and so he just splits. That part of his life is over now. So he decides to go visit his lesbian daughter who lives on a rural farm with a black neighbor who helps her out named Petrus, an older guy. This is South Africa, so apartheid is in its history. There is a feeling of racial tension, so all of that influences this narrative. So he works at a local animal shelter with his daughter's friend, euthanizing dogs. Dogs are an integral piece of the book, sort of a metaphor. Going and selling produce at the farmer's market, helping out, you know. And he hopes to get working on writing an opera about Byron. So while he's visiting, two black men and a boy break into his daughter's house, lock him in the bathroom so he's unable to help her, rape her, then douse him in alcohol and set him on fire. He and his daughter survive, though the physical wounds aren't nearly as damaging as the psychological. His daughter becomes despondent and indifferent to just about everything. She doesn't report it to the police, even though he insists, like demands it even, because of, well, many things it seems. And this is where everything gets truly complex and painful and bleak, as if it wasn't enough already. Lucy even suggests that her rape is similar to paying taxes. It's like what the men believe they're owed for her being in their environment, in that landscape as a white person, as a white woman. She isn't justifying it. She's just, it's like an argument that she posits, and it's kind of just so dement. It's just, that sound comes out a lot when you're reading this book. Like she suggests almost in this kind of like some sort of like just truly dark space that's just the way things work there or something. It's like this is historical retribution, or this is kind of now that whites aren't on top, like now that they're the minority, this is how things work around there or something. And this is the unspoken law in order for her to exist in this environment, something akin to that. Which of course to us and the father, our main character, David Lurie, is just devastating. I mean, there's no other word for it. There are so many questions and so few answers in this book that it's part of its brilliance. He knows what he's doing, but he doesn't tell you that he has the answers, because I don't think he does, and neither do we. Although we may feel very, very strongly that we do. Certainly, I know what I would do in the situation, or I have a feeling I know what I would do in the situation. And I assume the feeling is probably mutual. We all want her to report it. We want justice done. We all want these things to work out okay, even though everything has gone to absolute hell and further. But God, can you imagine? Just the fact that he's like he's just unable to, it's just about failure in every sense. Like failure to save his daughter, failure to just failure. Fucking endless failure. God, things can always get worse. And there's one more enormous cataclysmic event to top things off. But I've told you enough. I'll leave it for you to find out. This is plenty for now. This is a book about failure on so many levels. When he finally starts writing his opera, I just thought this was so brutal, but beautiful. Here, and it starts off with, he sighs. It would have been nice to be returned triumphant to society as the author of an eccentric little chamber opera, but that will not be. His hopes must be more temperate, that somewhere from amidst the welter of sound there will dart up, like a bird, a single authentic note of immortal longing. As for recognizing it, he will leave that to the scholars of the future, if there are still scholars by then, for he will not hear the note himself when it comes, if it comes. He knows too much about art and the ways of art to expect that. Though it would have been nice for Lucy to hear proof in her lifetime and think a little better of him. He just drives it in like a knife. He wields the pen like a sword. Coetzee is a master, one of the greatest authors alive. He has to be. He won the Nobel Prize. Coetzee was born in Cape Town, but he was educated in part in Texas. He grew up in South Africa. He's an academic who taught at Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Harvard, University of Chicago, and the University of Cape Town. Influenced by Kafka, he's also a fan of Beckett and Joyce, and their grasp and mastery of the English language. Joyce, particularly in his Ulysses phase, I think. Yeah, it's near perfect writing, right? If there is such a thing. Balanced, clear, smooth, easy, and enjoyable to read. It's like a perfect glass of wine. You know it when you come across it, right? You don't even notice it. It's like a perfect film, because the whole thing with film is that you don't notice that it's a film. It just rolls and rolls and rolls, and we're good. Same thing with literature. You just jump in and you don't question it. You're not aware that you're reading. Who is it? Elmore Leonard says, "If it sounds like writing, I rewrite it." Yeah, little is definitive in this one, other than nobody wins whatsoever, and there's no hope. Barely. Well, I suppose there's hope, but you could probably argue that one. Ultra tragic. So sad. It's not a character struggling against the curse of existence only to be torn apart. but rather a person who sort of has a good idea of their own failures and takes responsibility for them. Much of the tension between the characters has to do with the political history of South Africa and apartheid, something I know nothing about. So I'm really going off the basic idea that apartheid happened, it was bad, it's no longer around, but there are lingering aftershocks. And like many places, including here, the present is haunted by the past. Regarding Dostoevsky's skepticism that the self could ever tell the truth to itself, this interviewer asks Coetzee, why is self-delusion so apparently inescapable? They're discussing the difference between Rousseau, believing that you just need to be completely honest, referencing his Confessions, I haven't read it, and then comparing that to Dostoevsky's view that it's not just good enough to look in your heart and write, and that it just as well may be some self-serving lie as it is to be the truth about yourself, as Coetzee tells us. And Coetzee says he falls in line with Dostoevsky. I think that the basis of his position is simply that the heart of our own desire is unknown to us. And perhaps even further, that it's in the nature of human desire not to know itself fully, to have some kernel of the unknowable in it, and perhaps that is what animates desire, namely that it is unknowable to itself. What is self-delusional is to imagine that you can tell the truth about yourself, that it merely takes, a certain frankness with oneself and a certain boldness in putting it down on paper and revealing it to other people. That is, at least in Dostoevsky's eyes, a delusion. How much of that he agrees with, I'm not so sure, but he seems to agree with all of it. I don't know, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you think we're able to accurately assess our own behavior and tell the truth? The actual truth? Or is there no truth? Is it like Pirandello's character, composed of one, no one, and 100,000 truths, depending on who you're interacting with? Is that the truth? That there's an unfathomable different shades of truth? Which is to say maybe that there is no truth at all? I'm asking you. This is one of the best I've read this year. Better than Food, by far. Loved it. Terrific. Not a happy book, but a beautiful book in its own way. So who should read it? If you enjoyed Stoner by John Williams, definitely. Also a sad story about an academic. If you like William Faulkner, I did Absalom, another sad story about family. My Struggle by Knausgaard, definitely. Definitely check this out. Maybe if you enjoyed Michel Houellebecq or Céline, although there's no malice in Coetzee's writing, I think those two previously mentioned definitely have a lot more cynicism. There's not much cynicism going on in Disgrace. It's pretty sincere. So who's going to get it for the coffee lottery? For those of you who are new, the coffee lottery is where I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more to support the show, and I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review I do, and I send whoever's name I pull out a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, along with a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. Got a shipment of Guatemalan in recently. I'm drinking it all the time. Love it. If you are interested in getting in on that, you can head over to the description box below and click on the link, or head over to patreon.com/books-are-better-than-food and donate $5 or more per video, and $1 or more will get you access to patron-only reviews. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who has supported the show, and best of luck to you. So, here we go. Really appreciate it. Always remember, bring a book wherever you go. You never know when you'll have a few minutes to read. You may finish more books than you thought you could with the amount of time that you have. And that would be great. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more book reviews. I also do film reviews. Some good stuff coming your way soon. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Always helps. And if you like to, you can follow me on Instagram. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.